Okay. I've gone, so.
Are we live?
I hate that.
Hi,
Oh,
Jeopardy.
made it.
Right, so I think we're live. Are we live? Excellent. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's version of the AgriLeader Circle. We're live from the Halton Farms Milk Shack, so thank you very much. We'll hear a bit more about that in a bit. But tonight we're going to be talking about some representing and educating gone blank.
Can't get out of
So the image and of the industry. So what we've got is we're going to be talking about what does the group feel the general public opinion is of the British ag industry. What are the expectations of the industry? And we want you as the audience to put that in all of these guys' lives, so put it in their feeds and tell us what you think. So what do you feel the general public's opinion is? What are the expectations? Whose responsibility it is to promote the industry? What do we do as AHDB already? And what more would people like to do? So let's go around the group and see who we've got. Just to say, Tom Pemberton was supposed to join us, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. But we have got Becca.
Hi guys, I'm Rebecca. I'm a sheep and arable farmer, and we're based up here in Yorkshire.
Hello everyone, I'm Lisa. I work at AHDB and I do a lot of the work for Reputation in the media team.
I'm Olly Harrison, an arable farmer from about 45 minutes away from here. I will just say though, for everyone, we're all streaming on different devices, but if you go to either my YouTube or the AHDB's YouTube, you'll see it from a better camera over there where it fits everybody in.
Cool. I'm Isaac, and I'll try and remember what I'm saying.
I'm Karen Halton, and I'm from Halton Farms, and I'm a dairy farmer.
And I'm Charlie Beaty. I'm a beef, sheep and arable farmer from Warwickshire.
Right, let's get stuck in. So put in your comments, what do you think and the reputation of the industry is, and what we can do to promote and defend that and get it more widely spread. So as a group, how do you feel? What is currently the reputation with the public? Do you think there's a problem actually?
I think there's a growing problem. Sorry, I'm going to jump in there first. I think because people are thinking more about where their food comes from and that environmental impact they have, because it's being promoted by our government and companies and everything like that, to think about your carbon footprint and the choices you make. I think there is, that there is a growing or a stronger opinion now of farmers, and some places that's good, but I think it's increasingly getting worse. I'd say that the opinion, a bad opinion, is growing of us, and I don't want to say it's all bad, but I think there is a stronger opinion overall.
Rebecca, what do you think?
I think it's a really interesting one, and I don't disagree that there are some growing negative opinions. I think sometimes the negative voices are the minority voices and shout the loudest. One thing I would say though is actually I think it's really interesting. Sometimes I'll go somewhere and obviously could be in our wellies or you're in your boots or you look a bit like you have been out working on a farm. It'll be really interesting because it becomes a talking point. Oh, are you into horses then? And I had it the other day. I went to pick up something from a shop in town. Oh, do you work with horses? And I said, no, I'm a farmer. It started a massive conversation. The first thing this man said to me was, oh, you must work hard then. I know you've been busy. And I thought, what a really positive comment. He thinks, it was maybe just throwaway, but I felt really humbled. It made me feel like he was respecting the work that we're doing. And lots of us have busy jobs. But yeah, I was over the moon when he said that. And he understood the time of year was a busy time of year.
Karen, you get a lot of people coming into the milk shack, getting the milk and the ice cream. What's your feeling when people come here?
Well, I'm probably coming from more of a positive place, because of the situation I'm in. So when I'm seeing people, I'm seeing the people that are coming to me for a reason to buy my produce. But the great thing is that I learned from that is they're choosing to do that because they're starting to understand about farming and what we've got to offer. And it's really important to a lot of people now that they buy local food and they come here and see the animals. And what I'm finding more of is that that's important to them to be able to see the animals and how they're kept. And I think the way we struggle, I know we've got this pressure about what we produce and how we produce it, public money and all this sort of thing coming at us, but at the same time, if we can demonstrate that we're doing a really good job, then that's our stage and we need to do that.
Brilliant. You know, we like high jeopardy, so we've just had some people coming in to get some of your milk. So brilliant. So we can ask them as they come out. Lisa,
You're
you.
not going to come out. Do that.
So I was just going to say that from an AHD perspective, we do a lot of research on the public opinion of farmers and farming, and actually within the entire supply chain, farmers are the most trusted and always have been. Consumers are very caring about what we do and very sort of appreciative. And I would say that whilst the attention is being drawn to the environmental impact of our food and how it's produced and where it comes from, I think people are now in a different position where they can almost start to choose where their food comes from. It's not just about going to the supermarket anymore. You can come to places like this and actually see how your milk is produced. And I think people who are in those fortunate positions do want to do that. And of course, for everything in the world now, because it's so open, with things like social media, with things like Google, there's just so much information out there. And I think if there's a remote slight bit of interest of where your food comes from and farming, they go to it.
Yeah. Tell us on the comments what you think. Sorry.
If we're the most trusted and we're being told that there's a high opinion of farmers, the most trusted in the supply chain, why are many farmers still struggling to break even, let alone make a profit?
So for most consumers, they don't want to think about how the food gets to the supermarket, i.e. the process of what you get paid, or you know, to understand that it's animals have looked after and the environment is looked after. They want to just assume that that's taken care of, and they don't have to think about that at their point of purchase. They want to think about what's convenient for them, what works for them, and how much it costs. And that's the same for environmental impact and welfare. And that's probably where the disconnection is. I guess they don't feel they have the power for it. It was in the news recently that milk has come down in price. So they cut retail prices of milk. And it's fascinating because whilst that appears to be a good story in the media, we sit here as people who understand what it is to produce milk. And you know, why are we cutting milk prices if they can remain where they are? Because that could then filter down to dairy farmers.
Why also is milk cheaper than water? That's got a shelf life of what, 3 years? It's absolutely great.
Because they're a price maker.
So how do we change that? How do we make that reconnect with farmers? What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, sorry, I wasn't.
She's reading the camera.
Well, a lot of it is that's about education. It's used as a loss leader, our product, isn't it? Our product, the problem is with milk is it's used to get people into the supermarkets. And if like there is a very well-known supermarket this week that's put out there that they've dropped their milk by 5p, but they've not dropped to the price to the farmer, which is an absolute lie, because the milk price has dropped to the farmer and they've dropped it in the shop. But they're hoping obviously that they're going to get footfall. But how many people go, I'm not buying milk because I can't afford it?
But how do we as an industry, both us as a levy body, but also you as farmers, how do we change that? So consumer, because the reality is until the consumers start asking for that and being much clearer about it. So how do we make that connection
I
stronger?
don't think the consumers think it's their responsibility.
No, but if we can connect with them, do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, that's telling our story. Like
Yeah.
we do beef and lamb boxes. So similarly to you with the milk shack, I do get the positive sides of things when people come to us for our produce. But again, you're kind of almost preaching to the choir there because they're already converted. It's maybe making those that haven't thought about it, and generally I don't think have even considered that it might be their responsibility as the end consumer to help change the way the balance is.
What I find crazy is we have fair trade products in supermarkets, none of which are UK products.
Yep.
Where's the UK fair trade logo?
We've got some of the highest welfare standards in the world, and we need to be paid for those standards.
Maybe we do actually accept though that consumers trust that we're doing the right things. We don't need to get them involved. They don't really have the time or the inclination to get involved. So we trust that that's happening. So let's say we've got a tick in the box for consumers want it, they know it's happening. We know we're doing it on farms. So maybe we need to look to the other people. Supermarkets are a massive, massive power in the supply chain. And basically, sharking farmers left, right, and centre. I've been to some talks and things where people have said, well, we all need to go back to buying local and whatever. And I simply come back and say, you can do that with meat boxes to some extent, with milk to some extent, but I can't go and sell even a kilo of wheat locally to, you know, to my neighbours. And so we've got too much food to move for this idyllic, or we'll all just sell to our villages.
It needs to be illegal for supermarkets to buy things below the cost of production, because that's what they're doing at the moment with eggs. They've got egg contracts that are below the cost of production, buying the eggs because they've got to supply to the.
But ultimately, it's, you know, the customer's always right, that's saying. So how do we as farmers connect with the consumer so that they do start changing? How does that, you know, we've had
That's not what we're doing tonight.
That's what we do.
the
The active thing for us is we do lots of school tours. So we have the clubs, the scouts, the beavers, in the evenings come round. We have schools, we have WIs. If we can get those people on farm, we're doing Open Farm Sunday on the 25th of June. So if we can actually get those people here, who are people from in the towns locally, who are going to come here because it's a free day out, and they think they're going to go on a farm and pet some calves, but once they're here, we've then got to sell them that message.
We do the same with WI, and I always find that the WI and the Scouts and the Cubs, massive one. The WI, that's, you know, they're coming out on a free trip out, and it is such an easy way to kind of show them what we're doing and hit maybe a target audience that we wouldn't necessarily hit. Yeah, strongly agree with that.
And for us
School
as
visits
well.
and everything.
Sorry,
No, you're right.
it's getting them to taste the product. The product do taste so much better
Oh, absolutely.
and different.
Yeah,
And it's also, they get here then, and we'll give the product away to get them to taste it. And once they taste it, they're like, oh my God, there's nothing like the milk in the
Yeah.
supermarket. It's loads nicer.
I think I completely agree about educating and connecting people to what actually goes on farms and not hiding it behind smoke and mirrors. But ultimately, when they get into the supermarket or wherever they buy their food from, a lot of people will see that it's British, some of them, and trust that, but they'll still go for the cheapest possible versions that they can. And we're here as farmers saying we need more money for our products, therefore the food price needs to go up. We've then got consumers saying we can't pay any more for food. So we're always going to hit a barrier.
because
As it
I'm as
stands.
guilty as anyone as that. You go do the food
Yes.
shop. Yeah, I make sure it's British, but I still go for the best value for money, because, and we are in a cost of living crisis as well. Like, how can we expect our consumers to fork out when some of them can barely afford to pay the rent or heat the houses?
Which is the first one?
Just like going back to the supermarket thing, we shouldn't allow them
Oh, absolutely.
to have really poorly made British products that are loads cheaper.
But then we have a government with their head in the sand and a DEFRA minister who's saying, no, there's absolutely not a market problem with eggs. So,
And they want cheap food to get vote.
yeah.
Well, how do we change? So, you know, so that we can sit here and
Talk
like,
to the cows.
talk to the cows, go boom, boom.
Coming in for milking, surely.
But how, you know, what can we do? Because, you know, obviously, a lot of you do a lot of really good stuff, but how do we get more? And Lisa's point about farmers being the most trusted, how do we get more farmers involved? And how do we get that message out wider?
Well, as part of the Weed Balance campaign for AHDB, we did a lot of consumer.
Just tell us a
testing.
bit more about what is weed balance.
So it's a campaign that AHDB runs to promote red meat and dairy as part of a healthy balanced diet. This kind of siloed view or single-minded view that you can just eliminate it, and there you go, you've got a healthy eco-friendly diet, and it's not quite so simple, you know, it does have a really important role. So we have this campaign, and as part of that, to really understand what messaging consumers will respond well to, a lot of the focus group came back and said, you know, we're really appreciative of farmers, but we never hear from them. We don't know what they do. And I think in some areas that you are very sort of available to them, but in other areas you're really not. I mean, I'm not from a farming background at all. And if I wasn't working at AHDB and doing what I do, I would never ever hear from you or see what you do and have that experience. I only do it because of my job, and that's the vast majority of the population.
Yeah, so we had a thing here on Ollie's YouTube saying, Mike English, I'm a non-farmer. My concern for farmers is the cost of fuel and fertilizer and the increased labour costs. How much is that an issue? And I guess, and kind of what can I do to help with that?
It's a massive issue. The only thing that's missed off there is interest as well. Interest rates are not very good on my farm at the moment. I've invested to push forwards thinking there's going to be brighter days. And now interest rates have gone up. It's just.
So what can we say to Mike? Yeah, what can he do to help support farmers?
I don't even know what the answer is there.
Buy locally, buy British, support local.
Yeah.
I direct, I think that's.
And buy direct.
Is it our own fault
Probably
for not having?
Don't shop at a supermarket.
Or some supermarkets are better than others. So they look at.
I think we do need a fair trade UK brand, and then people can look for it, can't they? Is it something Red Tractor should be doing?
I think one thing that's important to note as well is that farmers are price takers on the whole. So by doing something like this, so you can see milk behind us, you can basically set your own price, whereas the majority of farmers are not setting their own price. So if you can afford to find somebody who's setting their own price with meat or lamb boxes, selling eggs locally, something direct, find price makers and support them if you can afford to do it, I'd say.
And can I just say everywhere? On the pricing as well, we've been doing this since 2016, 2015, 2016, and nobody has ever complained about the price. Nobody's ever come in here and said, oh, milk is a bit, I can get it cheaper at the supermarket.
That's not, because that's
Yeah.
not the point of it, is it? You're not going to get
This is like an auto cue, this phone, but honey, it's the bat phone. So Berkshire Farm Wheel has just said, in America, farmers are well thought of and respected. The people in America understand the importance of
How do we do that here?
yeah, I think that's a good comment, but I don't totally agree with it. I
No.
think it's the farmers that we see and the people that we see on social media that are related to farmers think that, but I think you probably find lots of America are so disconnected from agriculture that it probably is
Yeah.
the same thing.
I was thinking, I've spent quite a bit of time in Australia and New Zealand, and particularly with New Zealand, I was out there not long ago, and there's so much, like, the distance between your general public and a farmer is so much closer. Like out here, you could go into the city and nobody knows it's related to, has a friend of, that is a farmer, whereas in New Zealand, a smaller population, everything like that, but so everyone knows someone that knows a farmer,
Yeah.
and I think that's a big part
I
of it.
suppose probably it's a geographical thing. So probably 80% of America feel like they know a farmer or what goes on a farm. But 80% of the people that live in America don't live in them rural areas, they all live in the cities. So it's probably like 20% actually feel like that, but we only know the 80% of the population. That makes sense, 20%. Yeah, 99% statistics are made. No, you know what I mean? Like you can travel across America and all the geographical locations and all the different towns, and they'll be surrounded by acres and acres of farmland. But in reality, there's 1,000 people live in that town. When you get to New York, and how many million people live there?
But like AHDB are doing these campaigns like Week Balance and Love Land Week and all that, but
And the dairy one. And
yeah,
stations.
absolutely. So what, like, what more do we want as farmers to see from them coming? I want people to comment. And also, if you're general public, like, what do you see of what AHDB do and what makes a difference to you? Because
And actually, those are marketing campaigns, which is not strictly reputation. Yes, you are promoting a product, you're not promoting an industry, you're not protecting an industry. It's a slightly different sort of area of work. So I do work with weavers, but it's not what I do. I work to promote and protect your life.
see, I would
So-
just say that those campaigns are all,
So that's
industry
marketing.
protection.
It's like
yeah.
your kind of your name's protected.
We had, I think it was Alejandro Blair, somebody, but AHDB need to be much more proactive in responding to bad science on this subject. That's one comment. And where was the one from Alejandro Blair? Is the AHDB's job to promote farming to the consumer or to be investigating, researching, improving farming for the levy payers? Arguably, they go hand in hand. They do that.
Well, when we did the Shape the Future vote last year, the year before, where we asked the industry, what do you want us to focus on? What are your priorities? And it was overwhelmingly this sort of reputational aspect where you want us to promote you, to protect you, to run marketing campaigns, to push education. the sort of technical element that Ali refers to there is kind of further down. It's kind of like leave us to do the farming, go out and give us a good name.
I think that's a really good point though, because as farmers, we like, all right, the ones that do social media are all right at it, but we're not not got marketing degrees. We're not good at marketing our own produce because as a rule, we generally don't have to do it. So I'd say we're probably not very good at marketing our industry as well. You know, that exceptions to the rule, but as a whole, I would say that the industry isn't good at marketing itself. So,
and Lisa, so you'll come in on this, but Weed Balance, this Department for Scrumptious Affairs, all of those things were much more targeted at, you know, the demographic that are waivers, or, you know, so as farmers, you might not necessarily see those campaigns because we put them on tube, you know, stations and in the metro and things like that. So that is very targeted campaigns.
Yeah, so the We Balance campaign is targeted at waivers for people who are unsure about whether to include meat and dairy in their diet, or they're thinking about reducing. And it's just to kind of hit home those messages as it does. You don't need to eliminate it. There doesn't need to be that blanket approach. Keep it in your diet. It has a really important role both environmentally and for health and human health. And it does work. I mean, the results that come back do show us that those people who are exposed to it, who may have had those sort of doubtful thoughts, go, oh, actually, yeah, I'll stick with my beef spag bowl tonight instead of my corn. And it's just tapping into those seeds of doubt.
A massive thing for me with it all with the AHDB as well, I want you to be fighting the misinformation, because you know, when I'm awake at 3 in the morning and my head's spinning and I've got all these fantastic ideas of what I'm going to do today on social media, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to do this and I'm going to, you know, solve all these problems. You know, by the time I hit the calf pens at 4:30 and I've got a set of twins and 3 cows have calved, you know, and then the day goes on by 8 o'clock at night, I'm just like, I haven't got that inspiration anymore. So, and then also there's so many things that when we go back on social media and start to kind of correct things, it's like in the back of your mind, you're always like, oh no, is that really true? Oh no. And you almost want somebody to say, yeah, you're okay, you can say that. You're okay.
So I was just going to say, we do have an email called the ad check. So adcheck@ahdb.org.uk. And you can pretty much throw anything into that email and say, is this right? It might be something that you've seen. It might be something that you think might be right and you want to talk about it in a school. And we'll check it and we'll come back to you and tell you if it's right.
Presumably not just farmers can email that.
Yeah.
Consumer, if they think that sounds dodgy, like the flora thing at the moment. It's on some really dubious state.
We've had lots of comments here on Charlie's Instagram about some of that. So yeah, there's obviously
but we need your eyes and ears because each other is exposed to this because of how algorithms work on social and what you're exposed to. Tell us what you see. We'll take a look at it and see what we can challenge.
Give us a couple of examples of what we've done.
So we challenge a lot for misinformation, particularly for adverts. And remember, it's only paid adverts. If it hasn't been paid for, we can't challenge it. It's not under ASA jurisdiction. We may have got a lot of complaints. A lot of them aren't upheld by the ASA. ASA rules around environment are changing very rapidly. So we're learning as that's happening. But some of the big ones that we've managed to successfully contest is Meatless Farm, Oatley. There's some big ones we've been able to argue against, and so what you're saying is just actually not correct.
So if they've paid to promote a tweet or paid to promote someone on social media, you can challenge it.
Yeah.
But if they haven't paid, you can't. So it's our job, isn't it?
Yeah.
I find that really hard. Like I generally try not to make a point of arguing because we were chatting about this earlier, and if you start arguing, it doesn't get us anywhere. You know, and I try to ignore comments like that, but sometimes there'll be like the odd one, and you'll think, well, you know I can present a good argument against that, but I want to make sure that my facts are 1000% correct before I argue, and they pick and fault in it, and then I'm on my own.
And that's something that we struggle with because we, you know, so that because of the organization, we have to be so science-based.
Yeah.
So it is a tricky thing, but you know, Lisa.
Yeah, I think there's also I think your points on actually mustering up the energy to post on social media is a massive point. I've got to go back this evening after this and start editing a video. I know Ollie's been trying to squeeze one in. We'll try and get an Instagram post out. it's really, really draining. And I think people think, oh, it's just a photo. There's way more to it. And actually there should be way more to it, because we are under scrutiny. If you're following his building, everything has to be exactly right. But I think one thing as farmers we do have to do is make sure the stuff that we're posting, yes, it's factually correct, but it's understandable, and knowing your audience, because we can say stuff on our Instagram because we're just doing a job really quickly. Oh, I'm just doing this, blah, blah, X, Y, Z. Well, somebody watching it who hasn't been on a farm, it speaks as though it's in complete riddles and they don't understand it. So actually, to some extent, if we're trying to connect with the public, that story or that post was a waste of time. And I completely agree that you try and word posts and stories and whatever, and it's a tiring thing to do. And no wonder not every farmer is going to have the time or information.
But just to encourage on that, so we had Mike English who said earlier he's not a farmer. For me, the best marketing tool for farming has been Olly blogs, not for Olly to get too, something there. But yes, it does show that the things that all of you do, and wherever you are out there, and the things that you do and put on social media, it does help educate people, and people are interested in it. So
Putting a personal face to anything is always so impactful. So what you said earlier, Charlie, I don't think I'm very good at marketing myself or my industry, and I would absolutely disagree. I'd say it's one of the most powerful things you can do as individuals.
I think with that I more meant like agriculture, like farmers in general, not necessarily the ones that do put the time and effort into social media and whatnot. I guess because, but I definitely find the success of anything that I put on social media is always way higher if it's something more personal. If you put a face to it and a person to that.
I noticed that very early on the TikTok. You could put like whatever was trending on, and it either flop or fail. It's fly or flop. But everything I put on with my face and explaining something was consistently really good. So TikTok, people think it's for kids. It's better than explaining something. But no one wants to hear a noise behind the camera. Like these cameras are pointing at us, they're not pointing that way.
They want to feel like someone's talking to them.
You'll go listen to the radio.
We're talking about putting good stories out there, good personal stories. Just tell your story.
And a rant's really good. Make sure you've got the facts right, and a good rant.
And put a bit of comedy in there as well.
The rants go down well.
Oh, like
that's how Ollie's got famous. It's ranting on Twitter.
1,000% better. Yeah, I've got the hat then. Ollie's hat.
But then I get really worried if I rant, because you say things in the heat of the moment and then you're like, oh, that
I was thinking it sounded like a stuck record.
But don't forget, you can edit it. So if you have some, you can take it out.
Okay. Yeah. So it's not a live rant then?
No. You can get rants in now if you want.
Controlled rant.
It's controlled rant. But
you've got the passion then. If it's a rant about something that you're not happy with, or you think something should change, then you get the passion.
And I think that's something that as farmers we don't always we don't realise just how genuine we come across when we're passionate. And I know loads of times I've spoken to people, or people come here and I speak to them, or I go and speak at something, and people say they can see, and I'm just talking, I think, but they can see how passionate I am. And I think as farmers, that's what we are, because to do what we do and get up when we get up and work in the weathers we work, we've got to have passion, haven't we, to do it.
It's that balance between ranting and moaning, though.
Yeah.
I think there's got to be.
If they had to do your job, it'd take £10 for a bottle of milk.
I would.
But so we had David Mottram here saying, so we need, and I'm not going to mention him again because otherwise, but we need Clarkson and you guys to lobby government. So so how do we get that voices and all of your voices and the people said on the other side? So how to get those voices more heard in government, in whatever bodies and local authorities more heard?
Maybe we take the same approach to protesting as France and Denmark and that.
No, well, so the world's changed a lot in the last sort of 5 years, even more so in the last 10. If something's topical and you can get it to trend on social media, the MPs listen to that then, and the newsreels talk on it. The papers print it, and the MPs need to listen because you've got the voters watching you.
I was going to say, strike up a relationship with your local MP. I think that makes sense.
But nothing strikes a local better than the knowing that people are following you.
A local celebrity.
No, I don't mean that. I just mean to them, it's all about that they want votes, don't they, to win this election? And if they've got someone that people are listening to, we call it influential, then they want to be your mate. So MPs want to come out to farms
But also maybe
It's
some,
never used to.
with local journalists, strike up that conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're available, they're always after stories. So how do then do a bit more of that, whether it's local or so wherever we can get that in with public facing media.
But
Magazines.
it's so photogenic farming. They always want to be out, an office.
We're going to talk about your face again.
I mean,
I'm going now.
You did feel the pressure earlier when you saw us. I think as well, on a policy landscape, there's a lot happening for agriculture, and that there'll be a lot coming for food labelling consumers that will impact you as an industry. So there will be consultations. They happen all the time. They're open for you to respond to. So when they talk about environmental labelling, go on there, put your views on it.
I think another point, like like you said, there's a lot of changing in policy and everything like that. And a lot of farmers will think that actually maybe reputation isn't our biggest worry because there is so much uncertainty with those policy changes and that's something that they'll understand more and feel like they've got more of, maybe not necessarily more of a say in, but a better understanding of, and actually maybe reputation to them is less important to things like that and that uncertainty. So
I've probably done it a bit more personally now, whereas I've started doing things like I'm on the council with the Association of British Dairy Farmers. So I've been invited soon to the House of Lords to go and take them around and take about labour shortages. So it's things like that as well we can do and influence. And I do a little bit of stuff with DEFRA, sit on a farmer advisory board. So there is other ways as well. It's individuals away a little bit from social media. We can do.
And that's important here because that one thing leads to the next, leads to the next.
Yeah,
So it's important for them.
it is very disheartening though when we feel like, right, maybe we're making an impact on social media, consumers are on board, we're getting to some level of organisation, kind of policymakers or whatever being on board, and then we get to government, and I do feel like we are massively hitting a brick wall with that, but that's not strictly like AHDB's area as such, is it?
So AHDB is non-departmental public body, which is a lot of jargon, which basically means we're sponsored by DEFRA and how we operate is all set out in law. We are publicly funded by yourselves and your levy. So our role is to ensure that the government is informed on all scientific databases when they're making decisions about things. So we quite often go into government and we sit and we give evidence so that they can make informed decisions when they're putting policy in place. We can't lobby, which means we can't push for change in legislation. We just have to demonstrate the evidence for perhaps why it could be changed or should it be changed. It's the job of the NFU. The NFU are the lobbying organisation. They're the ones that bash on the door and say this is what you need to do. So no, we're not lobbyists.
So how closely are you able to work with the NFU to kind of?
So we have a really
push
good
those
relationship
facts?
so that they are fully informed by what the evidence is, and perhaps some of these influential sort of factors at play, so that they can go in as fully informed as we are. But they're obviously able to say things that we wouldn't be able to. And criticise government, we can't.
Because I think that's a massive misunderstanding from a lot of farmers is what AHDB are and aren't allowed to do, and what's the job of AHDB or what's the job of other levy, other lobbying bodies.
Commercially, politically neutral. We're not on any side of any government. Whatever says goes policy wise. So
I think some big part of that is to stay reputable as an organisation. You need to provide the facts, you need to provide the science. So we play with it and we try and push the boundaries as much, but we need to be science based. So that's we provide the ammunition and somebody else's job to fire the bullets is kind of their way of saying that. We had a really good. This is Rebecca's Instagram from Darble. Back on the previous point, it's the personalization, enabling the public to actually see who's producing their goods and showing that you are real people, great job, folks. So nice.
You can see supermarkets doing that though, because a lot of their advertising is just massive pictures with an actual real life farmer and not a model farmer who's just been roped in. They are wearing the work clothes they wear every day and they are authentic, which it does help, or I hope it helps. So yeah, if they're doing it,
Stroking a cow.
Another one here, it's from Sue G on my YouTube. I think she'd never heard of AHDB before watching my videos.
More
So
I'm not
If
far.
I don't know. So can you, if you're still
Surely
watching
not.
Sue, can you tell us if are you a farmer or are you just a YouTube
And,
watcher?
and for
In
the
fact,
rest,
we'd be interested to know what you actually do.
yeah,
If
so,
anyone's watching the live, can you tell us who's farming and who's not?
See the thing, there's a lot of farmers as well. There'll be farmers out there who think because we pay a levy, we pay AHDB this money. Surely it's up to them to go out and lobby on our behalf or change things for us because we're paying you. So it's good if we can clear that up. Like,
It's not why we were formed.
yeah.
And
so,
Oh, I was just going to say, there's loads of AHDB resources as well, which you wouldn't know unless we go looking for them, and we've had that discussion before we
loads.
started.
Yeah.
I would say on other streams as well. There are a lot of resources which I just don't think we're aware of. And so when you start to utilize them, go to some of the conferences, forums, AgriLeader forum is a prime example. If you go to some of those events, your levy starts to make a bit more sense. And it's not, I went to actually an interesting talk, and I'm not selling the AHDB here.
You're
But,
doing a great
yeah, I'll go back again next time. The chap who was talking said, you probably all view your AHDB levy as a tax. And by the end of it, a lot of people were seeing, actually, well, maybe it is more of an investment. And I thought he portrayed it really well. Maybe what export markets, for example, the AHDB helps open up. Therefore, that's potentially improving our price, or markets for offal, which obviously isn't a big thing over here. And I think once you start to delve into organisations like the AHDB, it becomes a lot more obvious.
Yeah, it's a bit like we moan at the public don't understand where the food comes from, but equally there's farmers out there that don't understand where the AHDB levy goes.
There's a lot of farmers who don't realise they pay a levy. There's a lot of farmers.
they don't know what that is on the bottom of the lamp.
My husband knows.
And that's because of the way it's collected. I mean, we don't know who most of our levy payers are because we just get the money from a lot of the time the processing from the abattoirs, so at the end. Cereals, it's slightly different. But that's what a big challenge was for Shape of Future. We wanted all these people to come and vote and put their priorities forward. But there was no way of us writing to you and saying to you, hey, you know, you pay this levy, come and tell us what you want to spend it on.
so if you're listening, so make
That's
sure you
why
get
we're
in
doing
contact,
this
make sure you
live,
get, yeah, then if you're listening, get in contact, make sure you get levy, and what these guys are talking about.
So just a quick one with the Shape the Future survey then, what did you guys think of how it was laid out and how it was as a survey? Because I found it quite not inaccessible, but
Okay.
quite like, it was very heavy.
I'm just
I
going to
think-
kick off. I didn't even know it was a thing, didn't do it,
Yeah,
didn't get him,
So
didn't get involved.
I think, so, you know, we fully accept, it was our first time. We could have done it better with anything
Yeah.
that you do for a first time, so, you know, we'll take some lessons away from
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
so. But it is, we need to hear these things, we need to hear your voices, challenge us, tell us what we can do better.
it was more how kind of how heavy it was, because you kind of got so far into answering it, and then I think a lot of people would have got set a certain distance and just been like, oh, I cannot
Quite
stomach this.
questions as
It
well.
really wordy, yeah.
Okay,
Just needs to
well,
be like yes or no, or like there are a lot of scale things and voting and that kind of thing, but it was really wordy, and I think a lot would have just looked and gone, yeah, no, I've got better things to do with my time.
Just getting back to, so we'll take that on board and take it back,
Thanks.
so I think.
But the questions.
I did a really good dissertation survey a long time ago.
Well, we had a really good question here on Rebecca's Instagram from Jack Sampson Blacksmith. Great name, Jack. Good evening. Can balanced diets and nutrition be a tool that is better taught by tackling obesity and poor nutrition? Be tackling by showing farm to plate process and where good food comes from?
I don't know if I'm getting the tone of the question right, but I do think we have a massive disconnect of how to cook food and how to make, for example, cuts of meat go a long way. People think that the butcher's expensive. Well, it is expensive if you go in there once a year for a treat and you buy your turkey at Christmas from the butcher's, because obviously it's a one-off, it's a big deal. But go into your butcher's, have a conversation with the butcher, find out what a cheaper cut of meat is at that time, because it does fluctuate, and ask the butcher for advice on how to cook it. And I guarantee it'll go further than you think. We live off leftovers, and our food bill is actually quite a low cost food bill. I'd say we eat relatively quite a lot of food in our household, as a lot of farming households do.
Drinks a lot as well.
Here, Ollie, that. But I definitely think there's a disconnect. Food, well, it wouldn't have been food technology back in the day. Home economics, pretty much verging on compulsory back in the day. And so I think, yeah, we do need to reskill children when they're coming up in basics of cooking.
And we're later on the year, I think the September one, we'll look at going into a classroom, talking to teachers and support the circle. So watch out for that one. But I do think a lot, we were talking about it earlier, people are more interested in where their food come from, and I think there is a niche for this and healthy, fresh cooked food. There are people going back to that is something we can tap into and promote as an industry.
Well, people want quickness, don't they? They want speed. They get in from work, they're tired. But the amount of TikTok accounts I see, and I must have got onto the food algorithm, of quick, easy 5-minute, half an hour, 20-minute dinners. You can use British produce for those, whether you're vegetarian, vegan, meat eating every single meal. That produce can be British, local, in season, and you can still get a quick dinner from it. It doesn't have to be a ready meal. It doesn't have to be processed. It doesn't have to be imported. You can do it all.
It's changing the mindset, isn't it? We've got it, and it's almost like we're coming full circle now.
I think so, yeah.
It's something I know we've talked about it before, and it's a massive bugbear of mine, like you say, that food production and that isn't compulsory in curriculum, because it's not a luxury, it's a necessity, and it blows my mind that it's not compulsory to learn about. But what's AHDB's ability to kind of sway that, and if you're working with DEFRA and the government and push that the inclusion of that more in schools and education, because I think that's really important. That's where we start with children.
So I'll only touch on it loosely because we're doing the education event in September, but we are official partners with the British Nutrition Foundation, and we run the Food and Fact of Life education program, which is a completely free resource that goes into every level of school, so right from year age 4 to 18, and it teaches nutrition, food preparation skills, menu planning, cooking skills, and since we've come on board, which was about 4 or 5 years ago, I think, we have expanded that now into environmental impact of food, health, and sort of the health of nature. So we do it, and we've got a really good partner.
What's the uptake of it like?
It's huge. I mean, particularly for during COVID and home learning, the uptake on resources and free downloads was absolutely massive.
So is that for people to do at home, or is it school based?
No, it's just all educators, but because of COVID and home learning, it's sort of everyone went on the internet and went, I need free resources.
I see, I've never even heard of it again.
Yeah,
it's another one.
So just at the start of the year, we did 4 education events, Scotland, Wales, England and Ireland, and there were teachers in the room, and we got real farmers. They stood on the stage and they said, "Oh, farmer, this is what I do," and the reaction and the feedback from the farmer teachers was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. It was amazing to listen to a farmer and understand what they do. I can take that back to my kids in school, because like you say, because they're not connected to farmers themselves, it's really difficult for them to teach it because they don't have that personal experience. So yeah, we do it.
And I can't remember how many hundreds of teachers at these 4 different conferences.
And we train them, thousands online we train in just this information, so they can go back and look at what they've got.
So you need to publicize this more, you need to promote yourselves
We need
better.
to know.
Like farmers, you do this, because I
No, you don't.
about this. And that would make me feel so much more positively about AHDB, knowing that you guys are doing that.
So a couple of people have
Lovely.
replied to different Instagram accounts to say that they're not farmers and be just interested in learning where the food comes from. What's this one?
So James McDermott said, what about the counter argument for providing the customer what food types they want, helping educate farmers to produce processed products that the consumer are used to?
James is one of my best mates from uni.
You have an answer for James?
I saw that on Ollie's and not on mine.
Yeah, but that's James. Again, if anyone is watching, if you watch it on the AHDB or mine, it's off that camera, not the phones. Yeah.
So what's your counter argument to James?
Can you reread the question?
Charlie's so James is basically saying, so do we as farmers have a job of providing more what people want, rather than saying we produce this, you got to buy it at a better price?
No, because we know what we're good at. So we know what we're good at producing. We know what we're It depends what if you're on more about a marketing front, then yes, but if you're on about more about physically what we make and what we produce, we'll know because we all know what
And is
our
that the
plants are
process?
suited
Yeah,
I
towards and-
think you do give us the data of what's needed and what's not. Like, I remember being at an AHDB thing and they were like, oh, you know, demand for barley is going up at the moment. You know, so that, I know that's I grow commodities, but you know,
yeah.
surely the beef and lamb will know what lots of lamb people are wanting. I know you can't. Let's grow legs of lamb.
So something else that we do
But
is that
you could prepare it for people and sell it in the box.
So what I was going to say is when we, so when you ask people what do you look for when you buy something, they quite often say, yeah, I look for British. I want to buy British and high welfare and environmentally friendly. And then when they get to the till, they go, oh, actually, I'm going to buy that one because it's cheapest. And they've shown that British, to buy British versus the cheapest, no matter where it's from, there's about a 10% margin. That's about as much as they're willing to pay for the additional to buy British. And I think it's really difficult because whilst you want consumers to support you, a lot of people are in the situation where they literally buy what they can afford or what works for
they're
them.
comfortable with, maybe if it's
Well,
cuts of meat.
Yeah, so
I always think that one thing, sorry, we do it with our meat boxes, we use the recipe cards and everything like that, and I think that's a really good way to promote those lesser used
That's-
cuts.
is that the midweek meals?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
use all of
sure,
them.
yeah.
I've got so many of them in
that's
boxes
the
at
big-
home.
Sorry,
But
that's
it
the
makes
biggest-
people, they look at that picture and go, oh, actually that looks pretty good, and it's a basic enough recipe that, oh, maybe I'll have a go at doing that. And I think that's a really, really good way of doing it.
It's
That's
actually a leading reason why people don't buy beef and lamb, because they don't know what to do. with
Yeah,
it.
not
It's
surprised.
not because of things they read in the press or because maybe it's a little bit too expensive. They look at these cuts that need a little bit more attention and a little bit more cooking ability and they go, I don't know, I'll go for chicken, I'll go for
Yes.
So midweek meals, the recipe cards, get it on there.
We always get so many comments on the recipe cards in the meat boxes.
What you're talking about the price of things and the 10%, you've got to question, no, how has someone been able to produce something miles away and put it on the shelf? What are they skimping on? And that's the other reason, like, you know, you should think about that.
So, Bostock, thanks for broadcasting, Karen and Tom. Really thought-provoking. Is it being recorded? Yes, it'll be on the AHDB YouTube, so you can go and find it there and share it, you know, and tell everybody, tell all of your friends. So, you know, them, Bostock.
Yeah, I do. Thank you.
Excellent. Right. What have we missed?
Do
Going
that
back
on
to
the big
the-
screen, don't we?
That is the next thing, is on the big screen. What have we got? So back to whose responsibility it is. So, you know, a lot of, you know, farmers want us as the levy body to pay to you know, promote it, but who else? So we've talked a bit about it. If you send, you know, as a farmer, if you know, where does that responsibility lie, or where does that balance lie?
Well, we definitely have responsibility. We have to take responsibility to make sure that if somebody walked onto your farm because they got lost, or if they're following a footpath, or if they are actually coming for a nosy to try and catch you out, we have a responsibility to make sure that everything is absolutely to the letter of the regulation. And I would actually say probably better. A lot of people are doing it better. So let's be proud of that and let's be open about that. And even simple things like on lots of farms, just like humans, some animals, some humans are being treated. They might be on antibiotics. They might look lame. They might look poorly. Well, if you've got a poorly pen, maybe have a whiteboard and, you know, X, Y, and Z treatment. So if somebody does find themselves in their shed thinking, oh, that pen looks absolutely awful because you've got 2 lane sheep in there. Well, actually, you can see that they've had this jab on vet's advice, vet called X, Y, and Z days. And then we're really accountable. We can be accountable, but all our records are inside on some scrap of paper or on a laptop. Let's make them, you know, you don't need to tell them the letter of that had 0.2 mil of whatever at this point, but let's make it so if somebody stumbles onto our farms, it's really obvious that we're doing all the right things. We can take responsibility.
So you get a lot of
Yeah.
So the maternity ward and things like that. So you've done a lot of that, Karen. So tell us.
Yeah,
a
we
bit
do
about
loads of that. And I think people, if you can explain to people what you're doing and why you're doing it, that's what they want to know. So we have thing there, like Isaac says, called the maternity unit. So when a cow is calved, she will go into that unit. And anybody, as you can see here now, coming up here, they can see the calf pen, they can see the cows, they can see the maternity. But then again, now and again, there'll be a sick cow in there. So there might be a cow who's under the weather, who's got E. coli, but she'll be in there, she'll be being treated, there'll be some water with her, there'll be food with her. People will come up to there and say, oh, what's going on with this cow? When you start to have that conversation, they'll be like, oh, right, so that's a bit like me when I've had a baby, and and we'll start to open that conversation. The other thing is as well is lame cows is a big thing in our industry. But I always say to people, if you sat in the Trafford Centre and watched 1,000 people go by, how many percent of those people are going to be lame? Well, I'll tell you, there's a far lesser percentage on my farm of lame cows. But again, we need to talk about that. We had a cow with shackles on a while ago, and she'd calved and her ligaments had gone a bit weak. So we put some shackles on her, and a lady was at the gate with her children. And she actually rang me the next day and said, oh, we were really upset. We saw this cow and she got these chains. And, when I started to tell her why, and if I hadn't have put them on, she would have slipped and done the splits. And then, you have to put them down. And she was like, oh, wow. Oh, my God, thank you so much. That's fantastic. I've learned something.
This is where the polarization is happening, because vegan activists take pictures or videos of things like that, they put them on social media, they attach all these emotive words, they make it really humanized, and people go, oh my God, it's hideous. But then that's because no one understands the context. They did. I've seen so many times front page news articles about things, and people come to me and Lisa, what is this all about? And when I explain to it, they go, oh, right.
So how do you
Okay. Which is so important to us as to why we have people coming in so we can talk about it. We've got to open up that conversation and chat about it.
So how do we find that balance between, somebody's put up there, what you don't want is end up in this endless spat and name calling, and it needs to be a positive argument. So how do we as an industry tell the good stories like you do here, but when we have something like that, so how do we push back but not end up in a name calling argument?
So the very nature of PR is to give yourself a good name, a good reputation, and any good PR practice is you focus on your positives. You don't worry about anything else. And I think sometimes farming industry gets a bit focused on everybody else, and they don't just think about, well, what are we doing? What is ethic about us? And that's what they want to hear about. Consumers tell us all the time when we do the research, we want to hear about what you do. We don't want to hear about you bashing other people or getting upset about what they say about you. Like you said,
Leave that to the politicians.
so talk about what you do. That's good and that's amazing, and that room for improvement, like you said, when you explain to people, it may not be perfect, but that improvement, people, yeah, okay, you've got it, it's fine. Sound.
I think that sounds like quite a lot. Like, again, it's fine for us that are all actively doing the social media stuff, but it sounds like quite a lot of work for just your general Joe Blogs farmer to think, well, I'm doing my job and I'm doing a great job of it, but now I have to explain to the Joe public why I'm doing every thing, like putting shackles on and etc. etc. It sounds like I know a lot of people will watch this and go, well, no, I haven't got time. I'm a one-man band, I haven't got time to do that. So, like,
but I think it's every little bit. You don't have to spend the hours, and editing videos or whatever, but it's every little opportunity. You have to take a little bit of time, but it's just having that mindset change of, when I have somebody on the farm on a footpath or whatever, I can spend that 2, 3, 5 minutes having that chat rather, doesn't have to. And I think that is a mindset change that we need in the industry.
Yeah, completely agree.
I was going to say, I think that's just as important, because we're sitting here from this, oh yeah, well, it's all right for you because you do have followers on Instagram or YouTube, or you have been able to invest in this amazing thing, and you are able to have people on the farm. And I say people will be sitting at home thinking, I can't do that. But it's even as simple as if you go into a village shop or into the pub, or the time that you speak to somebody on the phone who is a friend and they're not farming, because it all multiplies. They'll go and tell their friends, oh yeah, but I was actually speaking to this farmer, and that thing in the news, well, he said it doesn't even happen on his farm. And they're like, we need to be as positive with people as we can, because they'll tell our story for us as well. Like, people can help us, we just need to not alienate them.
Breaking that stereotype of a farmer being a old boy with a shotgun over his shoulder going, get off my land, and making us more approachable, I guess.
Long questions on the auto queue.
Which one do you want? The retractor one?
Where's it gone now?
It does roll on. There's a question about so from Adrian Hutchins, Olly promotes the red tractor but doesn't feel it's pushed enough. in big stores. What's your thoughts on the red tractor? Can they do more? So how do we make that a much more powerful brand?
They did do a TV advert, didn't they, last
They've
year?
got one running at the moment, actually. The problem with Red Tractor is they don't want what it's for, other than
Yeah.
farmers, that it's costing them money.
Yeah,
Where are we on the legislation of flags? Because we weren't allowed to put our own flag on while we're in the EU, were we?
yeah, so the red tractor logo has the flag within it.
Well, yeah,
To demonstrate that it's from the UK.
But I must point out, if you look, the New Zealand flag includes the Union Jack and then some stars. So when you look at something, you can think, oh, it's got a Union
Oh, I
Jack on
see,
it.
yeah.
So the red
It's
tractor
really
on being small is not very ugly. They
And
wouldn't
it is
work.
hidden by the actual tractor.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it doesn't have that connotation for consumers who, again,
But,
they're in a rush, they sprint in.
but if they can put a trailer on the back with a full of a flag, maybe that would work. So
I
when
do
you come and do
think
that, it's up at the
Yeah, I think it does just need to be a bigger logo, because a lot of people don't even see them, don't know what it means, don't even actually see it on the food
It's
packaging.
one of the most
Just needs to be-
recognised logos. So logos are a really contentious issue for consumers. There are a lot of logos out there, and most people don't have a clue what they mean. They don't understand what they represent. Red Tractor is, I think, the number one recognised.
That's from their own research though, because I've
Yeah.
seen that presentation. No.
That sounds viable.
And I've
Asking
I've done a lot of these type of events for exports where we have importers come on live and we talk about what British produce offers them. And the whole Red Tractor scheme is one of the greatest selling points of British produce, because it's world leading. There's no other scheme like that in the world. It's sort of that covers the entire.
That is only good if we are exporting though, isn't it? Otherwise, it's shackling us with undue expense.
We're working on it.
So if you're watching this, this is a bit of a watch this space, but hopefully the July circle, we're going to be talking about exports, and hopefully some a couple of you guys might be able to shadow an inbound some coming in, some importers, exporters from that side. So watch this space. Not confirmed yet, but so we'll talk about some exports in one of these in the future. So well, some queued up there. We're getting towards the end. So any final thoughts from you guys? So some how do we defend, and how do we build the reputation with Joe Public?
Positivity. We've got to be positive what we do. We've got to be passionate. We've got to talk to people. We've got to open conversations. We kind of got to take opportunities. So for us, if we have opportunities to have people here and have conversations, then we take them every time.
I think for the good of the industry, but for our own good as well, is that positivity.
Yeah.
And I'm going to echo that kind of, obviously we're doing things maybe a bit more public facing and we want to keep doing that. But even if you're not doing something public facing, but you still comment something negative on my Instagram, don't bother. Let's all support farmers, because if people see farmers attacking farmers, we've got absolutely no hope with the public. So even if it's something that you disagree with, that you think they're doing on the farm, why don't you just send them a message, talk about it, ask them why they do it. Have they got a different soil type? Have they got different shed space, different labour availability? And have a conversation, learn, and don't put that negative comment on another farmer's social media. It's just not worth it.
Which really is an interesting here on Halton Farms Instagram from Bigfield Baby, saying really interesting conversation. Thank you very much, everybody. Often find our best PR come from when we're crossing the cows over the road. People love to ask questions, and this is a great time to engage. So brilliant.
I think quickly, positivity wise, as a farmer, one of the most rewarding things that we ever do is having the WI or the Cubs/Scouts out on farm into the lambing shed. It does wonders. I second that.
You do know though, bad news travels faster than good news. So if you do need to get a message out, if you can cling it to some bad news. No, all seriously, like
Right.
the education that we did around spraying off footpaths, because we said, look what's damaging our crops. If we'd have just gone, oh, can people please stick to the footpaths? No one would have existed.
Yeah.
You've got to have something within it that's either controversial or bad, really.
To spark a reaction and space.
Yeah, but you can.
But I think it's balancing it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not
bad.
bad. Like we were joking before about rants, but there's passion in there, and it's generally about something that's bad in the world, whether it's the price of milk or the price of eggs. But if you can tell the story within that, That's what gets you the reach.
You're right, because if I email a journalist and go, look, I've got this great farm to talk about this, and whatever, and then something happens in the news, I go, look, now I've got this great farm to talk about this, they go, oh, okay, then yeah, we'll bring it.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
So in a minute, we'll just go around and remind everybody some of your social media accounts and all of that. But I think we've got some ice cream coming in.
No, well, we've got a glass of milk
A glass of
because when we do things around here, we always toast the cows and toast the industry.
I'll have my opinion well.
Yeah, so there we go,
I
ladies.
think yeah, thank
There we
you.
go.
Is it warm? 'Cause I-
Oh yes, it's spot on.
Are you gonna?
Can you just introduce that by man, please? Top, turn around.
This is my husband, Tom. Well, he's actually
I'm the good looking one.
Yeah, he's actually known as Karen Halton's husband. Hi, he's Tom Halton.
Cheers.
Cheers, cheers to the cows.
If anyone has missed any of this, it's available on.
The AHDB YouTube.
It'll be on mine as well. So
Excellent. So let's go around. We'll start on that end. Rebecca, tell us who you are, all your socials and all of that.
Rebecca Wilson 722 on Instagram. You can see I didn't set it up to actually get followers. And Becca Farms on YouTube. That's just started.
Lisa Bray AHDB, if you want to send anything to us, just send to adcheck@ahdb.org.uk.
I'm AgriContract on most platforms, but if you put in Olly Vlogs, that'll find it. And in about 10 minutes, we're going to go and have a look at the milking the cows with this milk from. And you'll see that in tomorrow video as well.
Excellent. So and look at Ollie on that. I'm AgriIsaac on Instagram and all those things, but obviously the AHDB YouTube channel, AHDB Beef and Lamb on Instagram and on Twitter and all of those. So follow us there. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you want to hear more about. So on our YouTube thing tonight, and we can try and work it in the future.
And subscribe to the AHDB channel because they're nearly 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
I'm Karen Halton. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Where else am I?
Tinder.
TikTok. Yeah, Tinder. Tom. Oh no.
Some grinder.
Come on.
YouTube. Yeah, YouTube. We've got a YouTube channel coming, and if you just look, basically just look for Halton Farms or Halton Farms Milk Shack, you'll find me.
And I'm Charlie. I'm on Instagram and YouTube, but I'm pretty rubbish on that. And that's as Charlie Farms, or on Facebook as Meriden Farm.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching, putting your some questions in, telling us all about us and what you do and what we can do better. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next month.
Cheers to the cows.
Cheers.